Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Olusina Ayegbusi. I'm the Group Chief Information Officer of Guaranty Trust Holding Company. I oversee IT function in over about 10 African countries, as well as our subsidiary in the UK. So today I'll be sharing my experience with you on continuous improvement. I'd worked in the bank for over 22 years. I joined the bank in 1999. And 9 of those years, I've been the CIO of the bank. And recently, we became an OD company and I became the group CIO. But the most interesting part of the story is that out of the 22, 23 years I'd worked, I've only been the head of IT, the CIO for 9 years. The other 13 years that I'd worked, I'd actually worked in a continuous improvement, process automation function. Therefore, I would like to share my experience with you in this area. So I thank the Teal Around the World platform for the opportunity to share my experience with you. My presentation will take this format. I'll speak about continuous improvement strategy. I'll try and go a bit in history, but the major part is that I'll share my own experience and then we can take the question. Now, Wikipedia says that continuous improvement process is an ongoing effort to improve products, processes, services by reducing waste or increasing quality. Now, what I like, which you will still find as I speak more, is that continuous improvement could be incremental and it could be a big bang, a transformational improvement. In history, we understand how after the World War, the Americans, had to help Japan to focus more on the process rather than just the outcome. And this, led to several improvements. In fact, like I always say, that it became apparent that we need to enjoy the journey as much as we enjoy the destination, which is the interesting thing about process improvement. So the process mattered. It is not always that the end justifies the means, but the process, the journey to getting to the end is very important. I also like to say that continuous improvement strategies can be applied to countries, and some of the actions that a country, Rwanda, that is celebrated in Africa are taking, a number of them have been, related to continuous improvement strategy. Organizations can also adopt continuous improvement strategies. Companies can adopt continuous improvement strategies. Churches, even a family, as well as individuals. And I want us to really have that at the back of our mind, because every time we speak about continuous improvement, what jumps at us is about how do we apply this in our organizations. However, even in our individual lives, in our families, in smaller organizations, both formal and informal, it is possible to apply this. So I'm going to share 8 points with you from my own personal experience of how continuous improvement has been very, very beneficial. Before I go there, let me just quickly mention 2 misconceptions that a number of people have. Number 1, automation does not necessarily or may not necessarily be an improvement. Well, I tell people that work with me, if you do not understand the process well, if the process is flawed, you may end up automating the flawed process. So I want us to have that at the back of our mind. Continuous improvement does not necessarily mean automation, because if the process itself is not good, you will then end up automating a bad process. Number two, it need not be a big bang. It need not be transformational to be an improvement. It could start small, step by step, as I'll still talk about it, for it to become improvement. But what is important is that there is this mindset to continuously pursue improvement. So from my own personal experience, I found out that one needs to get involved. I don't think anybody is too big or is too busy as the leader, as the owner of the system, because of the authority that the leader has. You know, being involved makes improvement faster and makes improvement better. I used to have a boss who was the former managing director of my organization. Every time we design a new form for customers to fill, he would tell us, you must fill the form. You, as the designer of the form, as a staff, you must behave like a customer and fill that form so that you see how easy or how the information you require, how relevant they are. So one must be involved and lead from the front and, you know, learn to work with people. Now, getting involved also require that one have a fair idea, understand the process, take the effort to know the process. It may be very difficult to contribute meaningfully to improvement in a process that you do not understand or that you are not involved in. So you must understand the process. You must understand the response codes. Why are we getting this result? Why are we getting this outcome? What can I do to change this? So you must have a fair understanding. You may not be the subject matter expert, but at least you must have a fair idea, and based on that, one will be able to contribute and communicate with the subject matter expert to identifying the bottlenecks and correcting them. So communication is very important. Remember, I said you must get involved. What you experience is what you can begin to show understanding. And when you understand, you need to communicate to the people that work with you and to even the people that will use the process. What I've discovered is that there are so many improvements that we have done, but nobody knows about them. And what people do not know, they cannot use. And what they cannot use, they cannot appreciate. So it is very important that one, we must communicate with our team, and two, we must communicate with every stakeholder who will use the platform, and we must give them a voice. There must be feedback, because communication cannot be one way. So there must be opportunity for feedback, both from our team and as well as the stakeholders, because that is one good way of fostering improvement. I also spoke about step by step. You know, Rome was not built in a day, but gradually, baby steps would eventually turn to adult steps. So it is important when we talk about continuous improvement to start small. It is not a bad thing. It does not need to be transformational. You remember what I said? It does not necessarily need to be a big bang, because somebody will say, is it an incremental or a transformational change? And so once you tell them it's incremental change, they lose interest, and they do not see how it will lead to improvement. But delegates this morning, I want you to understand that it is both small change, big changes, they will lead to improvement. What is important is the continuity, is the persistence, You know, I was speaking in another forum, and I remember I told them, a number of us at the beginning of the year, we make New Year resolution. We kept at it for like a week or two, and we stopped. A number of us, we decided to change our lifestyle, and we enrolled in gyms. We will go for 1-2 months or 2 weeks, and we stop. And we are the people that wonder, why am I not losing weight? Why am I not achieving the results that I want to achieve? You see, we call it continuous. So improvement on its own that is not continuous cannot be sustained. So we need to be persistent. We need not to give up. And consistency brings clarity and brings sustainability. Another point I would like to mention is about measurement. Measure the progress. Baby steps could lead to baby progress, baby improvement, but measure it. And when you measure, because what gets measured, it gets done. What gets measured gets done. So we must measure the progress, look at the timeline, look at the milestone, and document the progress. Because what that does is that it encourages us and encourages people that work with us to continue. Because the major challenge with improvement is the continuity part. Everybody wants improvement, but nobody really wants to pay the price for continuity. And therefore, our responsibility or the demand is to measure the progress so that we can further get people's buy-in and encourage people to keep at it. Once they see small progress, we begin to say, and this is what we do in my office. When we make a change, every week, we do a graph. Every day, in some instances, we are generating reports and we are looking at it. In what way have we made progress? Every day, every day. There is a meeting I have every day. There, every day we look at different tables, different reports, and we look at what we did yesterday versus what we have done today. And then that helps inform us what other changes we need to make. That is very, very important. Celebrate all achievements. Big win, small win. Thank God it's Friday. Lately, we started a program that every Wednesday we play game. You know, we were people that thought that we're very busy, that we will not have time for anything. But since we adopted Agile framework, part of what we try to do, every Wednesday, we will have a fun time. Let's celebrate all achievement. Again, what this does is that it motivates people. It encourages people. And there's no progress, there's no improvement that is too small to celebrate. And in celebrating, there are times we deliberately identify the most improved person, not necessarily the best persons, because the experienced people, at times they will continue to win. So we try to diversify the award, and we identify new people that just joined, the best rookies, you know, the most improved people, just so that we can carry everybody along and give them the mentality to continue. This is my last point, point number 8. And I think this is very important. Remember, what we need to do with continuous improvement, I submit this morning, we then need to transit from making it a personal experience to a corporate experience. I mean, improvement that only rely on a leader. When the leader leaves, then the mentality may go with him. The approaches may go with him. So one of the things that we have decided to do is some of these practices that initially when we started were commonsensical and they had helped us. You know, how do we make it entrenched? How do we make it pervasive within the IT organization, within the group? And this is where we saw the need to build it as a culture. so that when I, as the leader, leave, the continuous improvement mindset will still be with the people. Culture makes improvement become the corporate goal rather than an individual obsession. So it's not about a person anymore, and it is about the people. And this led us to, getting into agile framework, and indeed any other framework that one likes. Because at the end of the day, it is the process of acculturization of the processes of the step across the length and breadth of the IT organization. This is where the sustainability is. This is where the continuity, the continuous part of my presentation comes in. So whether one is there or one is not there, it becomes what we do. It becomes our way of life. So in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I submit that change could be radical, it could be transformational, it could be a big bang. But what we must do is to ensure that we are constantly improving. To improve and make it sustainable, it takes discipline, it takes hard work to improve. Lastly, we must trust the process and pay the price for continuous improvement. Thank you very much for the opportunity that this platform has provided, and thank you for listening to me this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the insights of your presentation that you gave us. So do we have any questions from Edwin or Jamie? Otherwise, I also have wrote some questions down, and you can also post it in the chat, or maybe because we are such a little group today, you can also unmute if you like and ask a question.
Yeah, sure. Maybe for me, hello, hi, Sina. I was curious when I got Greatest message, because I work now in a bank. I came from another industry, so I'm fairly new to the bank. I'm part of the staff, the regular employees. So before I post my question, I just want to say I really appreciate when you said that automation doesn't necessarily mean progress, because the bank I work for now, I appreciate it because it's very agile. We're adapting the agile processes and all that. Processes are being digitized, paperless, and we could say that we are more into that part, that phase already as compared to other traditional banks. So it's good. The culture is great. However, sometimes I also see times when we have a system already, it's called Salesforce, where they put in leads to help us get clients. But then one thing that they do is now they added to the KPI that we have to daily put in how many calls we put, just to prove a point that we're actually using the system. And I find this kind of taking a step back, because now they're now using this to like it's another KPI that we now have to put into our daily tasks, just to prove that we're actually making use of the Salesforce that we're paying for, when in fact this should just be an avenue to help us take the leads, but shouldn't be a KPI to measure our performance or how hardworking we are every day. So that's just one observance that I saw when I started with the bank, that really resonated when you said that automation doesn't necessarily mean progress, because if you don't use it in the proper way, it's kind of still taking a step back instead of moving forward. So I appreciate that. And I guess for my question, since I'm new here, very new, I've been in the aviation industry for almost 8 years. So now I feel I can see this, and then now I'm joining Teal. So I really appreciate what I see and observe here and absorb. And then sometimes bank is so traditional, right? And I feel like I'm a small person in the bank. I'm not even in the management position like you. So how do you think I could start these little things that you're saying, take initiatives to maybe inspire that kind of culture? I know it's not going to happen fast, especially with the traditional bank, but maybe be part of just the beginning, the start to something that could hopefully, transform it into something more holistic, not just agile in the processes, but like a whole holistic thing for the bank moving forward.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, from my personal experience, I think one needs to start from his little corners. You know, the task that had been given, even in that, because when I started my career several years ago, part of what I saw, you know, was that there were rooms for improvement in the desk, in the task that was given. You know, I remember clearly how they used to file document, how in those days, I mean, we did not have many things that we have now, but because of my experience, because I studied computer science, probably that was the reason it was easy for me to introduce, you know, spreadsheet, you know, some of the calculations they had to be doing manually. I wrote some macros to do them, even on my own desk. So what my bosses noticed was that the reports were coming out faster. That's number one. Number two, you know, again, I tell people it does not necessarily need to be technical to be improvement, again, because I remember part of what I started to do, I was in charge of expense control in my team. You know, I was in charge of payment, actually, payment of expenses. So on my own, I introduced a report every week, every month. So at the end of the month, I started writing a report of how we did well, comparing ourselves between this month versus this month. Apparently, the bank was doing that at a larger level, but in my own department, we were not doing that. So to answer your questions directly, we may not have the privilege, the influence to doing the big bank, but when we start small in that area, in that your job, it will become manifest. And then gradually, you will have a bigger opportunity to do at a larger scale. So things I started to do as a beginner in the organization, that is what I'm doing now that I'm part of the executive. So, you know, that's how it starts. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Thanks, Jamie, for the question and also the answer here. And I was also thinking when Jamie was talking about the measurements you said, so you keep kind of track of the improvements that you make. How do you balance this with trust? So it could also be that if you measure a lot, people feel a lot under control, like that you just always observe them and they need the KPIs to put it in and everything. So how do you make sure that maybe a culture of trust is still implemented in the company?
Well, incidentally, I give the responsibility, maybe because of my position, so I give the responsibility to measure even to the staff themselves. You know, to build the culture, I don't want to be the first person to see the report. And I always tell them, I expect that before they come to meet me tomorrow for the tomorrow meeting, they would have seen the report. They would already have an answer why we improved. They would already have an answer why we did not improve. So the report, I always tell them, the statistics, the metrics, they are not necessarily for me. They are for all of us. So number one, they now see that I'm not measuring them. They see that they are measuring themselves because they are the first. So when they are coming with the report and they are coming with explanations, what they ask. In fact, some of them come very early, waiting for me in the office, especially when we have done very well. They are very happy to say, see, there is an improvement. So that creates excitement and I celebrate them. So that's how we try to manage it.
Oh, that's nice. So it's kind of a shift of responsibility and they can, they decide themselves how they measure and then also, it's just, that sounds really, really interesting. And do you have any other questions, Jamie or Edwin? Otherwise, I might go ahead with some that I have. All right. But I also was wondering about, I mean, you talked a lot about the continuous improvement. Do you have some examples how you really integrate this into the day-to-day life in your company to really foster this day-to-day or little steps that you make? Do you have some examples to share?
There are several examples. Once I get to the office shortly, the first thing I do every morning is to have a meeting with all the leads. And part of what we are going to look at is to see several transactions. You know, we have different tables, we have different reports consolidated in a presentation. So every department is going to present to me what we did yesterday versus the result of the previous day. Whether it's ATM transactions, why did we have more failures? And now we have come to understand the meaning of the different errors, you know. So the fact that I have response code 91, what does it, we already know what it means. We've come to a level that we know what could have caused it. And at the end of the day, we are saying, okay, what are we going to do about it? All the response codes. So I have reports. Early this morning, I've checked my mail. I've checked the number of reports that have dropped. Okay, so for us, how we manage it is to meet, you know, we have regular meetings, some on a daily basis, some on a weekly basis, some on a monthly basis, some on a quarterly basis, where we are comparing previous times report and with the current period, and then we check what leads to improvement or what leads to degradation of service.
So this is also, yeah, just some keywords popped in my mind about failure and learning somehow. So when you have these conversations, so how do you handle failures? I mean, there are mistakes that we made, and how do you cope then with the learnings from it?
Fantastic. For failures, well, like I mentioned, part of what we make people do is to do their incident report. We make the person that is responsible, you know, for that task to do the incident report. Why? We want to know whether he even understands the failure. We want to know whether he understands what he could have done differently. So at the end of the day, he initiates a report where he puts his learning and he gives to his supervisor, who is supposed to look at it with him and say, okay, this is an additional learning. This is an additional reason why he failed, until he gets to me and we begin to add and put all that. That's number one. Number two, I also encourage my people that the best way to learn is by failing, honestly. It's a very difficult sell for me at some point for the organization because it's a bank. And like Jamie said, you know, we are very traditional. We are afraid of losing money. But the truth is that majority of the things we have learned, even me, you know, there are many failures I've had that have improved me. So I don't kill them, you know. I only try to let them document the lessons they've learned. And what we do is that we have a shared folder where some of these things are kept so that when new staff come, they don't have to make that same mistake. They hopefully will learn. We always give them access to the shared folder so that they will learn some of the things that we have done wrongly and the lessons we've learned. So hopefully, if they will let them make new mistakes, we hope that they will not make the old mistakes that led to those failures. So those are some of the ways we try to manage failure.
Yeah, it's also then part of the culture, I guess.
Yeah. You know, it comes back to what I said about acculturation. It comes back to what I said about creating a knowledge platform where people can learn from the past success and learn from the past failure and then pick from there.
Yeah.
When you join my organization, when you join my team, you'll spend 2 weeks not doing anything, going around the different departments and going to the shared folders to learn what had happened in the past.
So this is part of the onboarding then.
Correct.
And maybe for the onboarding, so how do we make sure the people like learn the culture and really get embedded into the culture that you have? Do you have any processes or ceremonies that you use for that?
Very good question. So part of what we do, you know, before you join my organization, you go through what we call Tech Academy, okay? Tech Academy is where we train you on the use of different applications in the bank, especially for IT. Now, because we have adopted Agile framework, part of the curriculum for Tech Academy now includes Agile framework. So while you are at the training school, we're already teaching you about Agile framework, what is Scrum, and all of that and all of that. Now, that's number one. Number two, when you join, you are not just going to your seat immediately. We'll have agile workshop for you. Okay, so in addition to the agile training, which is just 1 day, we will then have agile workshop for like 3 days where you finally, when you are past the training school and you have been posted to IT. So we have agile workshop for you. Thereafter, we'll then tell you you cannot join any team yet. You begin to join the different Scrum team. You sit with them in their meetings. You learn some. So you learn both in the class and by experience. Is after that, of course, we continuously encourage you to do certification. You know, we encourage you. In fact, the bank pays you when you pass your certification. The bank will refund you. So these are the ways we try to just bring you into the whole process.
That sounds like a lot of work, but sounds really, really, really helpful, I think, for the new joiners. And I was also wondering about, your employees have a lot of responsibility, as we already said, about how the measurement works at your company. Do you have the feeling this is something for everybody? So can every new joiner really cope with this responsibility they take over? Or do you also think that some people struggle with this?
Okay, because majority of our measurement have been automated. Okay, so I mean, for new journals, it's very easy because they are meeting the majority of those reports. They made them in the organization. In fact, many of us, the report would have dropped early in the morning before we wake up. Okay, so it's not an additional work for them. It's only the new report that when we are designing a report, that's when it could be tasking. But once we have done the report, it drops every morning. So part of their onboarding or their learning is for the people that are handing over to them, to let them know that, see, this is this report, this is what it means. And in our general meeting, because I also have a meeting with everybody, you know, for a very brief period, 30 minutes, 1 hour, everybody. The essence of having it for everybody is so that everyone can learn what the other person is doing. So you don't say because you're in software, you don't know what is happening in hardware, you don't know what the developers are doing. So in that meeting, everybody is learning. And from the feedback I've gotten, many people are very happy because it gives them opportunity. So we look at the report that has been automated and we discuss them. And that way people get to learn and understand. So it's not a bother anymore because they are largely automated.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the audience? Okay, I have also maybe a bit about your history about how did you start the Agile journey. So maybe you can share what were really the first steps, or maybe why did you actually decide to go that direction and to being more agile, and what were maybe the little baby steps, as you were also saying in the presentation, where you started with. This could also be interesting for Jamie maybe.
Okay, like I mentioned, a brief background. When I joined the bank, I actually did not join in the IT or process department. I actually joined in admin, and that was the example I was giving Jamie. I was actually in admin, and so and why I like that example I gave was because I started in a team that has nothing to do with IT, but we're able to apply improvement mindset. Some of them were technical, like I mentioned, designing Excel spreadsheet, doing macros, but the one that even made me well known were not necessarily technical. They were the ones about doing reports, weekly report. My bosses were surprised that a new beginner could be doing reports, telling, on different express line, analyzing why we did better, why we didn't do this as well this month, So they were very impressed because they were never getting that kind of report before. So it does not necessarily need to be technical. That's the point I'm making. So I eventually left that team to join a team in IT. Apparently, several years ago, about 20 years ago, in my organization, we saw the need to separate automation from improvement. So we set up a team called Workflow Enhancement, which necessarily means process improvement. So it was that team actually where I had the privilege of working after like 2 years in the bank. And in a short while, within 1 year, I became the team lead because my bosses were moved to another function, and somebody that is just 1-2 years in the department, I started leading. And today, that team led to a number of new things we did in the bank: workflow automation, the intranet portal, many things that we both off-the-shelf application and even the ones we built in-house. Because, for example, in those days, for you to get approval, we had to be carrying papers all along, but we were the one that introduced system to do workflow and approvals and stuff like that. So that was where it started. After a while, I left my bank. Another bank called me, and this was even completely outside IT. It was operations. They wanted me to focus on how to improve the operation. That's one of the largest banks in Nigeria. So I had to go to that bank, spend 2 years there, and all I was doing, a function that should have resided with maybe strategy or with IT, we put it under operation because the focus there was how do we improve the operation process. And luckily, we're able to do a few things before this bank where I am now, Guaranty Trust, called me back. So I had to go back after 2 years, to this bank, and where in a short while, after 1 year, I became the CIO, But the culture, the blood, for improvement remain. And that's why you will see that in virtually every department, they have a report that they do for me. Now that I'm group CIO, every Monday, 1 o'clock, all the banks all over the world that is Guaranty Trust, they are doing a report. We've given them a template, which is also another reason that makes it easy. They have a template, and in their meeting with me every week, they also must tell me why, they must be able to explain why the volume of transaction is this low, why this failure rate is high, what suddenly happened that the transaction success rate went up. And I'm not interested in success. And I think that's another point. I'm not interested in success alone. I'm interested in the reason behind it, because success that you cannot explain may not be sustainable. So I want to know, what did you do differently, so that one, other people can learn, two, even you will make sure that it's sustainable, not that you are very successful today and you are not so successful tomorrow. So those are some of the things I've done.
Thanks for sharing. And you also mentioned that, it's more about also enjoying the journey that you make as much as possible. Do you have some examples how you make sure that the people really enjoy the journey that they make, and like on the journey to improve in your company?
Okay, and this is where the measurement thing comes in. There are times that we begin to make a change, even the organizations does not know yet, all the pain, all the things. When you are cooking the soup, nobody knows until the food is ready, okay? So while we are meeting, people see it as a lot of work, having to do all the things I mentioned, the meetings, the improvement. Now, one of the ways we make the journey enjoyable is through the measurement. If you work with me and tomorrow you see that the failure rate was 20%, but all of a sudden it's now 10%. The following day, you see that it's 9%. Honestly, like I mentioned to you, you see the joy in people's faces. By the time they bring the report waiting for me in the morning, they are already excited. My boss, please see, come and see, it's now 7%. So number one, that is very interesting. Number two, like I said, the celebration part of it, there are general meetings, I will tell the whole house, even though the ideas might have come from me or might have come from another person, but the person implementing it, who is often a junior officer, I try to mention the person's name in meeting. I'll say, everybody, please, let's clap for Samuel. The error rate that his manager has gone down, so everybody claps. The person is very happy. Some of the time, he didn't come with the ideas. Most of the time, actually, he doesn't come with the idea, but he's the one implementing, working on it. So he gets very happy. So tomorrow you are going to see very excited because he wants to be clapped for, and other people too are running. And like I also mentioned to you, lately we've started having games, you know. So during the games, we have a little refreshment. We have not even seen the result yet, but we are having game, we are eating stuff, we are celebrating, and that's ultimately, and to give you an experience, there's one process like that, you know, at the end of the year, the central bank in Nigeria, you know, organize an award for the best banks, you know, and for like before COVID, for the every time they've had that award, my bank has come tops. In fact, there are times we win 8 out of 12 of the awards, you know, which is unprecedented. Why? It is because some of these actions that we are doing. So when that happens, of course, people, the bank, everybody buys pizza, buys stuff for us, for my department, and everybody is excited. So these are some of the ways we keep people motivated and excited, you know, through with continuous improvement.
Yes. Thanks a lot for sharing. Maybe this also goes a bit in hand with the feedback procedures you also were talking about, like internally, and the transparency that you have. Do you have specific procedures for feedback, or is it more that it's like the culture is like that you always can ask for feedback and that people give feedback to each other, or are there also specific processes that you have implemented?
Okay, we have both formal and informal means of feedback. One, remember I said that we have meeting every day, both one-on-one and general meeting. So that provides platform for you to provide feedback because everybody is in that meeting. We also have meetings with your unit, with the leaders in the departments. That also, you know, some of them bring issues of their staff. This is what my staff think. So those are some of the informal. I run a very open system. In fact, in my office now, we break down. There's no office really, because we've removed all the partitions in the boss's office. So it's an open space now, you know. So that I'm sure everybody comes to me and everybody, you know. So and that happens even to the other bosses, you know, or to other kids. That is one. Also, we have the policy of whistleblower, even in IT. If there is a way you want to tell something that you don't want, you want to be anonymous, you know, so that is there. During appraisals too, not only does the appraiser, you know, appraise the appraisees, we have 360 degrees, such that even the subordinate, you know, could say a few words about his boss, you know. So those are some of the ways we try to do that. And we introduced something actually, which I forgot to mention. So now during your birthday, during every staff birthday, we do a lot of celebration for him. We sing, we give him prizes, and we make 2 people at least to talk about him. What led to that was that I felt is when people die, that people begin to write tributes, or when they are leaving the bank, you know, when they are leaving us, we begin to tell them how much we love them. But when they are with us, we don't tell them. So we started that to say, okay, during your birthday, we will pray for you, we will sing for you, we'll buy a award. I will make 2 people to at least talk about you, how you have impacted them. And I think people like it, and it becomes very exciting.
That is a very, very nice ceremony. I think it's a really cool idea, and really, yeah, builds the trust and connects the people also. I can imagine.
Thank you.
And maybe maybe a bit off topic, but yeah, which I'm also personally interested in. I saw on the website that you are also very much involved in giving back and doing something for the society as a bank. Would you share something of that with us?
Okay. Over almost 20 years, the bank have adopted. We are very strong in CSR. But particularly, there are certain organizations we have adopted. Mercy Street Children Hospital is one of the big hospitals in Nigeria, Lagos. So that is our hospital, you know. It's Children's Hospital. So the bank literally manages the hospital. and that's at corporate level. So the way we do our CSR is that we do some at corporate level and we do some at departmental. Okay, so what I'm talking to you about is about the corporate. So we have a number of organizations, a number of programs like that. We also have different football, because Nigeria, we like soccer. And so we have two phases. We have the Principal's Cup. We have another one for the elite schools, so there's some for, because there are some for, and we do this across all the countries where we are. So we have different football competitions where we sponsor, football. And this also is cut across all the states. Okay, for my department, we chose to visit some orphanages. So this is contribution from individual members of my department. Every year we go to this seniors home, and we also go to the orphanages, going there with gifts, playing with them, because at times it is not about the money or the food alone, it's about the loneliness. So when we go on a weekend so that we can spend time with them, play, sing, and make them have a family. So these are some of the things we try to do to better the society.
And you really have the employees, kind of included in this, and they can decide, or also,
Yes.
really experience this giving back. That's the sense that I got from what you were saying.
Yeah. In fact, what we also do, we have volunteers that go to public schools to go and teach, on certain days. So we go there to teach them free of charge, and so do all sorts.
Thanks a lot. Edwin, do you have a question? I think you're unmuted.
So,
oh, now you're on mute. Yeah.
Yeah. Congratulations for the presentation. It has been a good talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you have any question, Edwin?
Nothing for time.
All right. I thought there might be another question. Let me see if I have something more on my list where I'm curious about how you do these things. Yeah, maybe going a bit back on this, keep going and be persistent. So maybe sometimes motivation goes down. I mean, everybody has sometimes a bad day, and I'm sure your employees or you yourself sometimes experience this. Could you share something on how you handle this, or how you really, if there anything else except of the measurement, how you keep the people going and the celebration that you would like to share?
Yeah, I think the persistent bit is the most important in this subject, because the continuity, like I mentioned, on individual level, that many of us that have made resolutions will go to the gym, have paid for some gyms, apart from the one that the organization paid for me. I use my money, hoping that when I spend my money, I will be forced to go. But of course, we all go like maybe a week and we'll stop. So, and of course, you are wondering why you are not losing weight, why you are not fit. I think the persistent part is because some of these things come with pain. Like I mentioned to you, it's just that it has become part of us. Meeting every morning, looking into the fine details, it costs effort. Okay. And there are times we even try to make a change to improve, and it leads to downtime. And so the following day, you tell your staff to do the same thing. They are afraid because the one they did yesterday led to a problem. There are times we've tried to make changes and it led to loss of money. Maybe we transfer money to another bank, and because of a change we made, we transfer multiple times. Okay, so, but what is important is not to be overwhelmed with the failure. What we try to do is to keep at it. We keep at it. I take the responsibility to explain to the organization. I take the responsibility if there's going to be any repercussion. But And most times there is no repercussion when you explain properly, when they understand what you were trying to do. So at the end of the day, it takes persistence to continue. You know, we call it continuous improvement. Without the persistence, honestly, there won't be any continuity because of the time, the effort, you know, and we have to have several meetings. From what I've told you now, there are several meetings. What is convenient for me is to sit in my office, be drinking my tea, be monitoring my screens. But because we want improvement, you have to be involved, and then we have to be persistent at it. So at the end of the day, the persistence is actually another thing that leads, one of the things that make it become a culture. You understand? I remember when we first started Agile, and we were using waterfall methodology for our project, for our software development before. And when we did Agile, I found out that the results were not as fast. I was actually tempted to stop Agile and just go back to what I'm familiar with. But we have to keep at it. You say, okay, let's give it some more time. Let's learn from the mistakes and all of that. And today is getting better. So those are some of the learnings.
Well, this is a very, very interesting one, I think, because like others who start going on the agile journey, and it's all, I mean, when you change and do something new, it's always that you have failures in the beginning, and it can be very easy then to say, okay, let's just stop and go back to where we were, but then really being consistent here and persistent there, and then really give it a chance, right? Not to give up too early to really see if it gives improvement or any changes for your company, right?
Yeah.
And maybe one last question before we close the session. You said change could be radical or not, but improvement has to be constant, that we already talked about, but maybe about the radical. So do you have any suggestion what you think is a better way to go for, like a radical change or go for like a small step improvement change, or could it also be a combination? What are your thoughts?
Of course, it has to be a combination. At times you don't have the control on the kind of change. For example, in my kind of work, there are times we are doing a core banking system change. That is a radical change. That's a big change. At times we are delivering CRM. You know, you are buying a new CRM. You are delivering. So that is a big change. You are doing so at times some of these changes in the kind of work we do, you don't even have a choice. It's the strategy of the organization that imposes certain changes on you. However, the point I'm making is easier because that's what the organizations see. They know about the big change, but at times they discountenance the small changes that nobody hears about. And that's what I've really learned. And that's where persistent patience and working not for anybody's glory comes in. Some of these little changes, the bank does not know, but that's what actually makes the organization. You know, they think is the big application, the internet banking, the mobile apps, and all of that. So, like you rightly asked, it has to be a combination of both. And you must give the same attention to them. In fact, the beauty of small changes is that it has built your muscle, it has built your passion, it has built your skill on managing big changes. So that's very important.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, thanks a lot for your time and your inspiration, and also the real life examples. So that I think that was very, very nice insights to get here. And maybe do you have anything else that you want to share now at the end of the session with the audience, or that you want to give them for their agile journey as well?
Well, I just want to thank them for coming, and I also want to encourage them the easy way to, not that I'm preaching any particular framework, but the culture. What is important with some of the framework is that they bring about the discipline to make the experience cut across. And so one, for individual life as well as for individual development and organizational development, it would be nice to get certified and then apply some of the skills even in our family and personal life. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much. It was great to have you
Thank
here at
you.
Teal around the world. And then, yeah, everybody who wants to join the next session should be the ideation lab on the purpose initiative in the main garden. So if you want to jump over, do this, and otherwise just enjoy the conference for the last few hours now. Have a
Thank you.
great day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.